The conflict between Russia and Ukraine may end in a negotiated settlement. However, that doesn't mean the West should stop sending weapons to Kiev or reduce sanctions pressure on Moscow. The statement was made by NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg on Saturday, June 25, 2022. Most likely, this war will end at the negotiating table, Stoltenberg told Spanish newspaper El País, acknowledging a military victory would not happen. Our responsibility is to ensure Ukraine is in the strongest position and help it remain a sovereign and independent European country, he said. According to him, the best way to strengthen Kiev's position ahead of talks with Moscow is to provide strong military support, economic support and push through tough sanctions against Russia. However, he refused to say when negotiations between Russia and Ukraine could take place. Peace can always be achieved if you give up. But Ukraine is fighting for its freedom, for its right to life, for its right to be a democratic state without submitting to Russian rule. And Ukrainians are ready to pay a very high price, sacrificing themselves for these values. It's not our job to tell them how far their sacrifices must go, Stoltenberg said. When asked whether the arming of Kiev by the West sparked conflict and increased the death toll in Ukraine, the NATO chief replied, "We help them because they ask for it. Throughout history we have seen countries willing to accept great sacrifices for freedom," he said. Stoltenberg also noted that despite weapons being provided to Ukraine by the United States and the European Union, there is no total war between NATO and Russia. Moscow has repeatedly warned of foreign arms shipments to Kiev, arguing the weapons would only prolong the fighting and increase the risk of direct confrontation between Russia and NATO. In April, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described the conflict in Ukraine as a proxy war waged by the US-led military alliance against Moscow. Russian and Ukrainian delegations from various levels held several rounds of peace negotiations shortly after the outbreak of fighting, but there have been no face-to-face meetings between the two sides since late March, when they met in Istanbul. Moscow was initially optimistic about the outcome of the talks in Turkey, but later accused Kiev of backing out of deals reached there. Russia says it has lost all faith in Ukrainian negotiators. Russia attacked Ukraine following Kiev's failure to implement the terms of the Minsk Agreement, which was first signed in 2014, and Moscow's recognition of the independence of the Donbass, Donetsk and Luhansk republics. The protocol brokered by Germany and France was designed to give breakaway regions special status within the Ukrainian state. The Kremlin has since demanded that Ukraine formally declare itself a neutral nation that will never join the US-led NATO military bloc. Kiev insists Russia's attack is completely unwarranted and denies claims it plans to retake the two republics by force.